so I can like change.
All right, welcome back to another episode of The Clean Truth. I am Dawson Holt.
I am Ben Jones, and today we are super excited, thrilled, honored to have two absolute legends of the game joining us today. So in the chat, let's give a warm welcome to Rudy Reynon and Steve Terada. Very nice. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. So if anyone doesn't know who you guys are, first of all, they're wrong, especially if they're on the Sport Karate Zone. So just real fast, let's give a quick introduction just for anybody who doesn't know who you guys are. Rudy, we'll kick it to you first.
What's up, guys? I'm Rudy Reynon II, also known as RU nowadays. Former world title champion in NASCA, former JPM member, Quest crew member as well, artist, producer, martial artist, many multidisciplinary things up my plethora of life, and that's me, guys.
Steve?
What's up? I'm Steve Terada. I'm JPM alumni, elder statesman in the game, I guess. World champion in extreme forms, musical forms, in the NASCA circuit in my day, and Quest crew member. And I'm also a stuntman and live performer. Performed a lot with Ru over the years as well. So he's my brother. What's up?
Sir.
Awesome. So great introduction, by the way. Again, super stoked to have you guys on. Since you guys are, kind of gave yourselves an intro of, you guys are former JPM alumni, and you guys are more of the, early 2000s / you guys competed in the late 90s as well. Is that right?
For myself, very, very late 90s.
Okay.
I started NASCA full time in 2000. So
Okay.
the 2000s
Gotcha. Yeah,
like
so
at Holt.
yeah, 2000s. Gotcha. Okay. So aside from that, like, kind of, give us kind of an update of, what are you guys doing nowadays? So yeah, you can, Steve, you can go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, so I'm still training, still do martial arts and tricking, and I do stunt work, so still train for that, for a TV film. Still doing some live performances here and there, like with we used to do stuff for the choreographers for like the Justin Bieber tours and things. So he actually does some for like boxing matches over in like Saudi Arabia. Sometimes we'll do that, and yeah, still teaching, and yeah, still involved.
Sweet. Awesome. That's really cool.
Oh man,
Rudy?
yeah, life update. I was trying to like kind of mentally prepare for that, but I'm just gonna spill the beans. Man, I've been working on my clothing brand, Realize You. Been restructuring the business side of things. Hopefully dropping a line in summer, and got a program called Commas with Ru, Kinetic Arts Movement and Style, dedicated to sport karate and sport martial arts. Currently, for the physical part of myself, I'm honestly rebuilding. I got in a car accident in 2021 that kind of messed up my body a little bit, and I took some time away from doing like industry work and commercials and industry live shows and things like that, and touring. Got a little small herniated disc on my L4, L5, but we actually are feeling really good now. I was telling Steve yesterday, I'm like, yo, I might throw a 540 soon. You know.
Oh, snap. Okay.
But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I gotta kind
Boom.
of slow down a little bit, you know, and
Yeah,
heavily
yeah.
been focusing on music, in the studio for hours
Mm-hmm.
every day out of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was more time throughout the day, but yeah, just juggling all these projects and creating programs and such. So yeah, always just
Cool.
creating, man, taking it day by day.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been keeping up with kind of your media and just seeing all that you're doing, you know, with your clothing brand and your music too. Seems like
Mhm.
you're killing it in that industry. You want to talk a little bit about that at all? So what exactly, so do you sing? Do you also make music? It's both,
Yes,
right?
sir. So the
Okay.
whole 9 yards of music, engineering myself, recording myself, producing for myself, started as a
Mhm.
producer. So under,
Okay.
the hip hop umbrella, but also like dabbling into, electronic music and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all music, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
doing that kind of like a self-expression thing, but also, all these things are businesses as well. So you gotta have to like shift focuses on that. So I had an idea of the brand, which is called Realize You, being the umbrella for everything that I have to offer, to our universe pretty much, which
Mm.
is, martial arts and music. So it falls under the brand Realize You.
Very cool.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
It's good
Yeah.
to hear, good to hear you guys are still involved with certain things. I know, like Steve, you mentioned still teaching some. And speaking of teaching, we've got quite the big lineup for an upcoming seminar you guys are doing. So March 29th, we've got obviously the two of you. So Rudy Reynon, Steve Terada. In addition to that, Jack Felton, legendary point fighter, Shahin Jahanvash, another amazing competitor that was competed a little bit more recently. So talk a little bit about what are you guys offering for this camp, some of the details there. And Steve, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, so we have 4 different sessions. Everyone's gonna do their specialties. Or me personally, I really wanted to teach a little bit more about details and foundations and like concept work, because I think at least our generation, in between like the newer gen currently, there's a little bit of a gap, because I think most of us got into entertainment and kind of skips like the mentorship aspect of
Mhm.
it. So it's been in the making for over a year now, just like
Mhm.
talking about it. But it should be a really cool 4 sessions. We've got a good lineup, and yeah, it's like should be a good time, and it's pretty reasonably priced too for having like four sessions, because less than, if you were to work with all of us, it's like individually, it's I mean, $200 is not that steep of a thing for how long we're going to actually be teaching for these seminars,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
100%.
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's one of those things. It's like get your bang for your buck kind of
Mhm.
situation. You're getting the best of the best.
Mhm.
And when Steve and I were talking about hopping back into the community, really, because we were like, hey, I think the sport needs some guidance in ways where maybe more of like the individualism and things like that, because when we were competing back in the day, it was like super characters. You had Anthony
Mhm.
Atkins, super different
Mhm.
style in comparison to Daniel Sterling.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Right.
um just bringing that flavor back into the game, because
Mhm.
the skill set nowadays is insanely high, but we kind of have to forget about there's in that evolution, there's a bit of like, hey, what happened to the individualism? Where's the flavor at? So
Mhm.
hopefully we come
Yeah.
back in there and say, hey, sprinkle this in there.
For sure. And I was just about to ask you guys that, since you guys, this is like the second time we've seen you guys that show up at the Compete Nationals and just surprise everybody. Like, I was just gonna ask, like, you know, what's y'all's current take on this current generation of, sport karate competitors. And yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest criticisms that the current generation has. It's like you see a lot of the same things. You know, it's not as much individualism nowadays. And I think we're starting to change that a little bit. I think for us as competitors, we've become more aware of that.
Mm.
Is there any other like, you know, critiques you guys could provide other than individualism, or is there any like things that we are already doing good? So, I mean, would love to
Well,
hear more
I
from you
think from
guys.
last year to this year, it was definitely like a level up from what we saw, which was like great. And I think that we're there's just like different ways for um those like personal like style and flavor things. I think right now, since everything is so accessible, and this has been happening in other communities also in movement, is that everything's so accessible where everyone just practices, looks at it, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna drill that and get it, and then move on to the next thing, as opposed to before when you'd see somebody 1 month and then you're like, wow, that was new, that was different, and then you had to workshop for like a full month before the next tournament and kind of
Yeah.
develop it. Or
Yeah.
also like remembering, it's like, oh, that was really cool. And sometimes it's different because everyone's memories, you know,
Yeah.
not perfect.
Yeah, right.
Be like, oh, I
Right.
think he did this. And
Mhm,
then
mhm.
that kind of turns into like different types of just workshopping and evolution of like a move,
Mhm.
as opposed to just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna perfect it exactly like this guy or whatever like that. And that's just a process thing, as opposed to like just drilling one specific move to perfect it, because you know that's just how it is. I think just in this day and age, so a little bit of the concept work and really refining by yourself, workshopping as a
For sure.
is definitely a difference in process, I believe, from like the older gen to now.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
back in the day, we didn't have Instagram,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
I was just gonna say that, right.
so we kind of get it mixed up with, you know, seeing all of the cards pretty much, you know, as competitors, you're like, well, I see how you move already, you know, it's easy. I'm gonna go into the ring and do better, you know. So back in the day, it was super secretive, you know,
Yeah.
like I
Right.
don't know what Emig is doing, you know, I don't know what Mark is up to, and you had a lot of things like in your back pocket, you know, for, you know, the little surprises that your competitors are going to come out with, you know.
Right.
And you know, most of us had camcorders, so that was the only way to capture your competitors was shoot, gotta get that on camera, you know. Nowadays it's like,
Workshopping.
is this
Yeah.
Right.
You miss it. There's no
Yeah.
live stream to go back and watch and slow
Yeah,
mo
yeah.
study it.
Right.
mhm.
All right. For sure.
And some
Yeah,
of
it's
those things
definitely
too, like, oh, so just to add on that is yeah, people training in secret. Like whenever I see, even now, like I'll see Emig and then he'll come out and it's like he says he doesn't secretly train, but he definitely secretly trains. I was like, dude, I've never seen you do that combination. And he's like, oh no, it's cool. You know, like he's super humble about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, it's like that. Or I was just talking with Anthony Murata, one of my old best friends, competitors, and he was like, oh yeah, even before us, there was kind of anticipation for tournaments, in the sense that like, oh, Jimmy Pham, super old school name, but he's like one of the most
Yeah.
winningest junior competitors into the 90s. He would come out with almost like 3 different forms for the day. So he would do like his daytime, and then he'd have a runoff form. So you'd want to watch the runoff form, and then he'd like sprinkle in some things like, oh, he's gonna do this form for grands. So it would be like
Right.
that anticipation into it, and made it almost like an event in the show. Just around that. And that's something that you know, I don't know if you can get into doing that many forms because everyone does like so many divisions now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that type of anticipation, like drive,
Mhm.
was very like inspiring to me as like a kid too.
Mhm.
In
What I
there.
loved about it too was the music. You know, like
Oh.
you never knew what Emig was gonna come out with because
Mhm.
him and I had this relationship with the mini discs. We would always trade mini discs and share music and mixes. And he was like, "Yo, I can't show you this one because I gotta, this is some new stuff." And it was on some stuff like that, you know what I mean? So that made it exciting. That made the sport really exciting, seeing what type of creativity they can come up with the music and things like that. And I noticed like nowadays that's not even an option. A lot of you guys are just hopping up on stage and doing the no music thing, which I totally support. I love that. I love feeling the energy, from the performance and things like that. But also too, it's like, let's bring back that music, to the stage. I think that's cool,
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like frustrating sometimes as a competitor when you get on stage and you can't use the music you've trained to, first of all, like, and then you also know the crowd's not going to get engaged with some like basically sped up elevator music,
Yeah.
It's like nobody's going to really get into that. So like for us, it's like the no music was just the way to go,
Yeah.
But then it's like it also makes those runoffs where we do get to use our music, or it makes those night shows that we do get to use our own music, like really, it makes it a lot more special. And then as a spectator too, like it's hard to get into some of the, at least like the intros with the music that we have to use in the night shows. Like,
Yeah,
it's hard to get through those intros sometimes because like
it
things
is
can really be choreographed just because of the way the music is. So that's definitely a struggle as a competitor and then a spectator too. I think it really takes away from it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it is what it is, but we're working through it.
Petition to get Steve, Rudy, and Matt in the 30+ division.
Oh no.
Do you guys like, I have a question about forms. Like, do you guys still play with like concepts of hand combinations? Like at all?
Yeah.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Interesting.
I mean, not on the weekly, but if it's something for like a show or for example, when Steve and I were gonna go on tour with Bieber, we would implement, sport karate hands and things like that. And there's ways about it though, to separate yourself from the competitor's mind of sport karate performance, because it's totally different, right? So with us doing that in like Quest Crew performances and stuff like that, it's like it's a different like brain, because both of us come from like dance background too. So I think that helped us on our creativity side of things. But I don't know, me and Steve, we was kind of talking about it. We were like, hey, let's kind of pop out and do some stuff, just for fun. On a little social media thing, but just keep the brain going,
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's dope. We had some questions about the team dynamic. Like when you guys, real quick, just list some of the teammates that you had when you guys were on Paul Mitchell and competing.
Like Daniel Sterling, Matt Emig, John Sue, we had Casey Marks. Like early on when I first got in, there was like Wayne Dalglish, he was way younger.
Lil Wayne.
Mark Jimmy, Butch Marks for like early times. And then when I got on, most of them kind of retired after that as well. Lauren Kearney. Dang, I'm probably gonna miss some now because it's been so long, but those ones I believe, at least for forms and weapons, were the ones, because we had during that time we had 3 different team sync
squads, we did. So, that was crazy.
Yeah, and we were all competing against each other.
Oh man, that's crazy. I mean, just like all legends, right? The whole lineup, which it's what JPM does, I guess. But what's like are you still connected with those people, like those teammates? Do you still chat with them at all to this day?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. I see Matt Emig every once in a while. He doesn't live too far, and we'll train. I haven't talked to John Su in a while, but there is still some like connection over there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and unless it's like at like a martial arts event, I haven't seen or kept in unless they move down here for yeah, because no one lived down here in Los Angeles until
That's true.
probably like after I stopped competing.
Yeah. And then, well, like you said too, there's what, 3 different sync teams at one time from the same team. So like,
Yes, yeah.
what's that dynamic when you're competing against each other, but then you're also teammates, you're repping the same name?
That's a good question. I mean, you kind of just, you're out there to do your best, you know. So all in all, it's just good sportsmanship. And it makes, honestly, it made me better as a competitor, you know, because you're on the most prestigious team, you know, you want to keep that expectation high. So there's a lot of pressure too. So, but at the end of the day, it was just fun, you know, and it kept us like sharp individually.
Nice. Cool. Steve, anything to add to that, or that's it?
Yeah, I think it was more fun. I think because usually we all didn't get to compete against each other all the time, because when we were doing it, like Emig was a junior, Rue was a junior also. Yeah. So when we were doing it, it's just like another like little boost of competitive nature towards it, and we're all like still friends, you know. And I think especially during then they were really pushing synchronized forms because Paul Mitchell would sponsor all of those. So they really wanted to shout out to Julie Selwell to JPM rep, like really push that and really like that one. So we wanted to do a good job and put on a good show
for sure
for that type of that event.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because I feel like that's how we feel about it now. Like, especially if it's like a sync division, you know, with sync all split up now, we don't really compete against teammates as much. But like in California, we compete against the trad sync teammates. So like that was kind of a cool vibe. And of course, there's nothing bitter between the two teams. Like everything's cool. And then, yeah, like you said, it's competitive. So just push each other to be better and better and better. So nice. Very cool. And then even outside of sync, obviously, like in individuals, you guys are competing against teammates as well. I mean, like you've mentioned Matt Emig a few times already, just a bunch of names that are pretty legit, right? So what's the take in individuals, and does that feel a lot different from sync, or is it still kind of the same vibe, but now it's individual, so it's a little more competitive?
I think during my era of individual, I mostly compete against Daniel Sterling in my extreme or like musical forms, and that was always like Daniel was always like that lone wolf. He was a little bit older than all of us. We were just so like younger kids and still messing around a lot in between, and he'd just be go in, do his form, and then go take a nap, and then come back in by the time we're doing it, and just like be like, you know, super clean beast. So if you were lucky enough to get out a division against him, or yeah, like compete against him on stage, you know, it's kind of the same vibe. There's no like ill intent. It's just more everyone is competitive and wants to win, and sometimes it's your day, sometimes it isn't. So yeah, it's still all love, especially like when we're also competing against other really good competitors on stage, because there were a lot more teams, I think, buried and at the top level. So like usually one person would win like an extreme or a musical or a creative. It wouldn't be like everyone sweeping everything unless it was like a weird year.
Sure.
Yeah, and junior year for me, it was mostly me and Emig. And then when I moved into the adult divisions, it was me, Mark, and then Emig, and then Kalman. Can't forget about Kalman. But in like the difference between like between team forms, I just treated team forms as it was a fun thing. You know, it wasn't really like a serious thing, honestly, because Steve and I would literally train for a week, and we wouldn't see each other for almost a month. And then the week of the tournament, he'd be like, "Do you remember it?" And I'll be like, "All right, yeah, I do." And then a couple hours we would review it,
Right.
and then we would wait around and do our thing.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves, but no Zoom, no nothing like that. He was like from Sacramento. I was from LA area, so go up there, train and drill it, get the choreography down, and then we train on our own till the tournament and refresher on there, and then we talk on online if there's any like changes or music changes. Because he would be making music up in Sacramento. Instant messenger, man. Not even text. Old. Sorry. Technology.
It's funny because like I do, obviously me and Dawson do form sync, and then I do weapon sync with Esteban. And like we talk about our sync a little bit more than me and Esteban do. It's so funny. Me and Esteban show up to the tournament and we're like, should we like run through it probably before we go compete? And then we'll do a quick run through, and then it's just go send it, and it's all there. So
it's that foundation, right? So at the combinations, foundation timing is usually about the same.
100%. Very cool.
Well, I kind of have a question and kind of add on to more the competitive side. What was, aside from the night show, I was wondering like what was competing on like a Friday night? Like what were the vibes like? Because when I would look on YouTube and see like those videos from that time, I would always see you guys competing on ballroom floors, and like even if there's like if there's a runoff is going on, like there were so many people around that ring going crazy. So yeah, the energy looked different back then. Like, what was it like?
Well, Friday nights were crazy because there's so many different divisions going on at the same time. It was like on ballroom, and some places or convention floor, like when we went to compete, like you guys get mats. We had just a thin carpet over like the cold concrete, and if it was a really thank God they phased this out like earlier on, it would just be tape on on concrete, which was crazy, and we're like flipping off of those grounds barefoot, which was messing a lot of people up. But
imagine.
As for the energy, there were a lot of teams, and usually you'd have like one or two people from your team in there, and it was almost like your teammates would come up and show up for you, right? So they'd be going crazy for you and like yelling behind the judges, like like all of that. And I feel like Friday nights were always a little bit higher energy than like Saturday mornings, because once Saturday morning comes, there were like too many rings going on sometimes,
Interesting.
But,
okay.
And for runoffs too, like I think we were talking about this also, that before, especially in juniors, it was 17 and under, so everyone compete against everyone. So it kind of leveled up a lot of the younger competitors, because like when you're like 9 or 10, you'd compete against someone that's 17, and maybe you're like your coach or or something like that, and they'd want to kind of get vetted into making it on stage, so it will push those kids to get up into there, except unless you're Wayne Douglas, you're like Rudy when you're like 11 or 10, still making it to stage during that time. It was crazy.
That was me.
Like
that was crazy.
Something,
The amount of bruised knees that I had from the concrete doing splits. Man. If we had mats back then, we would probably be a little bit healthier. It took off like a couple of years off of our life joints, to be honest. But if like tournaments felt like, I don't know if you've seen like old school b-boy jams or b-boy jams nowadays on YouTube. It felt like that, people hovering over the rings and stuff like that, and it just had such a pure energy, And I'm sure Friday nights are probably still like that, you know, at your guys' tournaments and things like that. But I don't know, like
We had
2000
rivalries,
energy,
that's why.
we did, yeah. It felt,
Lot.
it was thick in the air. You just smelt it. You just like, today's the day. Gotta
Mhm.
go crazy, you know?
Yeah.
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 I mean, for us right now, like, I mean, typically they put, the men's division, on the stage in the main room.
Mm,
And like with us, like, for like a prime, like a one of the big term, like US Open or Battle of Atlanta, like there's like over 20 of us in there. And like
mhm.
sometimes they'll have to split the division just because like there's a limit. I think it's like 20,
24.
24. Yeah. 20, if there's more than 24 competitors, then they have to split the division.
Uh-huh.
Um,
That's
but
so
yeah, like it
weird.
really, yeah, it's everything's different now. Like I think it
Yeah, I
really
heard some.
depends. Yeah, it's rules have changed a little bit. The system, we have a system now. We don't use cards anymore. I was talking with Matt Emig about this. Um he's like, "Do you guys still use the cards? Like do y'all still like shuffle the orders?" I was like, "No,
No.
bro, we use like we use Uventex." He's like, "What? Y'all do that now?" Um so
That's
yeah, and
crazy.
then but yeah, the division, like it can get pretty energetic, because we're on stage and the tournament is going on around us. Like, it really depends. Like, I think for us as we're competitors and teammates, Ben and I, Esteban, Phillips up there with us. Like, it really, I mean, for us, like, if one of us like gasses the form, then it
Mhm.
just kind of sets all of us off. Then I was like, oh crap, this dude just turned it up. We're gonna have to, it's gonna be a long night. So it's one of those dynamics. Obviously, like the other, like all the other competitors, that are in there with us are trying to beat us out right now. But
Mhm.
and they're killing it as well. But I mean, but for us, primarily like the teammates, it's just like
Mm.
if Ben hits a crazy form and he has the crowd and they're saying stuff and you got the judges sitting there like shaking their head, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
crap. It's kinda but yeah.
That's solid though. I like that. I like hearing that because
Mhm,
it keeps the motivation going. It keeps that
Mhm.
energy, keeps that spirit going, you know? And
that's
that's
true.
what honestly creates the culture, you know?
Mhm,
So you guys are kind of like the lead base, you know, for taste making and establishment, really, you know?
mhm,
Yeah. I think that's something we've
100%.
realized a little more recently. And we're like stepping into that role. Like people are watching us and then, we're setting the tone for the division. Or if it's the end of the division, like, man, we got to bring it every time because people know we're going to because they can see it on
Mhm.
Mhm,
social media now, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
they can see everything,
right?
and so they know we're
Mhm.
working.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's definitely, yeah, it's a cool dynamic, something that is different for us, but something cool to tap into. Kind of moving, and some of these might even be some of these like situations we're talking about, but what are some of you guys' personal like favorite forms? And it could be like, a daytime elimination or a Friday night or something or a runoff. Does anything specific come to mind right away?
Mm. Well, I think when I first started, like my first time traveling for tournaments, I was a junior. I was 16, and I went to Diamond Nationals for the very first time.
Mm.
And so back then, I wasn't seated or anything like that. So I actually did the card thing, and then I pulled first out of like I don't even remember how many people there were.
Mm.
Like yeah, I think there were probably 20 something people,
Mhm,
and then that year I had a lot of buzz around me because I won a few grands, but I didn't get to go to all the tournaments. So I pulled first, and then I actually ended up winning that division, which is like
mm,
super unheard of for that
Right.
to like score that high. I think I only did like 4 tournaments that year, and it was my first time in there.
Wow.
And then I ended up winning. That was I guess that was another Friday night thing.
There you go.
And I ended up winning that one, which was like crazy for me because that's the one that obviously you want to win, is like the season ender
Mhm.
there,
mhm,
and ended up winning the grands for that, which is my first diamond.
mhm.
Subtle flex.
What
That's
year was that? Do
awesome.
you remember?
That was 2000. That's
Sick.
it. Yeah, that was real. Yeah, fucking freaking so 25 years ago. So
Is
Don't say
it
that.
is
Don't
is
say
that
that, Steve.
I know.
is
My bad.
that is that form on YouTube? Can we find it on
It
YouTube?
is not. It is not.
Man, you gotta post that on
Man.
your socials, man.
I don't even think there is video of that, but it's more
Crazy.
like on the yeah. It was
Man.
just one of those tournaments.
Yeah, that's cool.
It looks like someone did post it in the chat. Looks like
That's sad.
someone, maybe Jonathan Rendon.
Could be the
Maybe.
wrong one.
I don't know. He sent the
Ooh.
link, so it may be.
Maybe. I'm not
Maybe.
sure.
I think my
Uh,
favorite form was when I did US Open 2010. It was like on
was really
stage.
good.
It was pretty much my last performance
Mm.
in my competition career. It was against Cowman. I didn't win, but that didn't matter to me. You know, what mattered the most is how I felt about my performance. You know, I was doing things that were new, never done before, and you can still see it in the competition scene today, which is cool. You know, shoot. Yes, US Open 2010. And then another one was like Diamond's performance. I think that was either 2009 or 10, one of those years. But I just remember preparing for those tournaments because I just knew like, okay, my time, you know, as a competitor is coming up and I want to move forward with life in general, you know, and I really was putting it out during those times of competition.
Yeah, I think that's the one that, like, if I tell anybody, like, you got to go watch Rudy Reynon if you've never seen him, I'll show that video right away. That 2000 US Open.
Same here.
Definitely. I just
Same
watched
here.
that like a week ago.
Yeah.
I think that was the first video I think I've ever seen of you, Rudy.
Probably me too.
Wow.
And then, yeah, that was the first time I've ever seen you or even heard of you, like first form. And then for Steve, I think it was, I think you were a junior. It was 2001. It was Charlie Nationals where you did that one, Big in Japan. That was the song you used. I think that was the first one I've seen.
Iconic.
Right?
Yeah. Actually, that might have been one. Yeah, probably 2001. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I lost my mind when I saw you go up in the air, do a bunch of flash kicks
Yeah.
like that. I was like, what?
It's coming back. I saw like TikTokers and stuff doing it now.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve has been one of the most original tastemakers in the game.
For sure.
He's not gonna say it, but he's the creator of the Snapu Swipe. He's the creator of the Switch Flash. Nobody's done it like Steve. I'm just gonna keep repping because he's not gonna say
toot
it.
his horn.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
like
we'll
those
definitely-
roll, pop full round, like all that
Man.
stuff. Crazy.
The
Dude,
full
you gotta-
round. What? You're crazy.
Yeah.
How'd you even think of that, Steve?
Well, I was just practicing, trying to do fulls, and then this is another like just challenge I always had for myself was if I was gonna do any type of flip or any type of twist in my form, I had to do a kick out of it or do a variation of it. So like any of those things. So that was just how I made a lot of different tricks. So if it was a inspiration from a different type of movement, I'd implement it and change the variation to a kick.
Awesome.
Genius.
Very cool.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk more about the Snapu Swipe in a little bit, but I also want to ask, like, since y'all talked about your individual favorite forms, like, what are some of your favorite sync forms that y'all have done together? Like, the only forms that I've seen on the internet was like you guys doing one at Diamonds and then compete nationals. I think those are the only two that I've seen so far. But do you guys have any other favorite times that you've done sync together?
There's this one at Charlie Lee's that I super liked, and I can't find a video of it.
I don't even remember. So
But I did love Diamond Nationals. That's
Diamonds was fun.
when we first started doing scoots.
Mhm.
And I was doing it with two hands. Both of us were doing it with two hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, both of us have watched that form a lot, and we both finished our sync form when you guys did that and bowed.
Yeah, I saw it.
We did
Mm.
that.
We saw the ode.
Yeah,
You
we thought that was
kicker.
the coolest thing. I was like, that's see that just a little thing like that, just a
That's
bow.
style, man. That's
Let's
style.
do that. Let's just do it.
Yeah, love that.
So
Yeah.
that was the coolest thing. I mean, you guys have already talked about with sync training. Like, is there any other like crazy moments you guys can think of from sync?
From sync.
With sync.
Ooh. I feel like, dang, that one's always hard because I feel like we were never like Rudy and I don't move the same as
Yeah.
much. You know, we have like different background techniques.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's more. I feel like I was always not trying to catch up, but trying to match like our timing and like foundation throughout the whole
Yeah.
entire time. And we obviously like kick differently
Yeah.
too.
Right.
So I was not always stressed, but like more like determined to just try and get us on the same page during, because yeah, like it was a little bit more crammed for putting it together before the tournaments and everything.
Mhm.
So as opposed to not talking about actual events, I remember doing US Open 2008, I believe, and we did the sync on a Friday night. We barely scraped by. I think we got the lower seed because they took 2 during that time in that daytime. I think we got the last seed to get on stage, and then the next day I tore my ACL and we couldn't do it.
Oh
And
man,
that was the last time we did sync for a competition. So I
Yeah.
remember that one
Oh.
specifically because of that.
Because you were trying Snapu Hyper.
Yeah.
See
Well,
this guy over here
yeah,
trying to
that
innovate all
timeline
the
is pretty
time.
crazy.
Trying to do it
During
on
that
I
concrete
remember
floor
that.
or puzzle mats?
It was the puzzle mat. It was on stage.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
why.
okay.
Oh, okay.
It was
Goodness
before
gracious.
Extreme Division, and everyone was like throwing tricks. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it now. Because one, everyone was training for 2 events, which were the Extreme tricks or kicks contests, when it was going to be eliminations, and we had like Anise and Danny Graham and Jeremy Marinas and Emig and all of them. We were all going to do like the bracket down for that night show, and then a week later was loop kicks, where it was going to be Team Paul Mitchell with like Emig, Rue, and me, and then
Seen
loop
that
kicks.
video.
Yeah, it's
Seen that
it's
video.
iconic. I'm on the side sitting down with a huge cast from having knee surgery on that one. So, but
Oh man.
so everyone's training for those two tricking events.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, and I've seen that video a lot of times. Like I've that's from that time. Like that's probably one of the craziest. It was a 3v3. It was 3-on-3-on-3. So it was like Paul Mitchell against loop kicks against like another
Hurricane trickers.
3-man team. Hurricane, that's right. And Rudy, you landed a world's first move in the battle just out of nowhere. Snapu swing gainer.
Yes, sir. I was trying it. I was trying that specifically throughout the whole week leading up to that day. And I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to land this. I kind of like prepped it in my mind, and I went out there because I was like, that was the only thing that I really wanted to land.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shoot, the energy's right.
Yeah, right.
And
Now, yeah, that's crazy. Emig hurt himself too.
yeah.
Didn't he hurt himself that night?
Yeah.
So that's crazy. He was on fire too. He was doing crazy stuff. I've never seen anyone do it. He did scoop box cutter to split. Like kicks around.
Trick and hyper hook split.
That's nuts.
So
wait, so he would kick.
He did
like
double
hook and
Yeah.
land behind like that.
Yeah, double
That's
hitting
nuts.
it.
Interesting. That's crazy. I also want to talk or ask about French Open. Like, now I've seen a lot of crazy French Open videos. That's when you did. Is that you did the first snap who swipe in a form at that tournament? Is that right?
I believe. Well, I feel like I might have done it in a daytime before on like a
Okay.
tiebreaker.
Oh,
Another
okay.
time, but I mean, like, it all kind of blurs together because the history is if it was uploaded to the internet during that time.
Right.
But that was one of
Right.
the bigger times.
Yeah.
Going back
Yeah.
to I think Emick beat all of us in the one that you're
Oh,
specifically talking about because it was one of those things we you know, you couldn't. We did every form in front of the whole entire stadium. There was only one ring, I believe, and it was huge. One or two rings. Yeah, no, it's
yes.
one ring, and your music is playing for the whole entire arena during that time.
Mhm.
So once we
Yeah.
got up to the next rounds, everyone stepped it up a little bit more, doing a little bit extra.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I did that. Wasn't the cleanest at all.
Yeah.
And then Emmy just did everyone's signature moves in this one combo and then won.
Oh
Like,
my
"Dang
gosh.
it."
That's
it
that's
was pretty
dirty.
wild times doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always
Pretty-
wondered, like, what was the French Open like? Like, what was because you guys all got out there and just went off. Like any video I've seen from that tournament, like you guys like enhanced your forms.
Going
I'm
crazy.
thinking, okay, so you all of you guys competed against each other. Like, was it like another NASCAR tournament where it was just like there's a normal division, a runoff, night show? Like, what was it like?
It was run like that, but it was kind of like that Friday night energy because except everyone
Okay.
was competing against each other. I think it was
Yeah.
juniors and adults, and then they had extreme kicks contests,
Okay.
kind of like Charlie's.
I was too young to
Yeah.
understand, so I kind of just was like, "Oh, we're going to Paris."
Cool.
Yeah, I think the first one when you were like
Yeah.
9 or something.
Yeah. I just
That's
remember
crazy.
John Valero was like, he needs to go out there. He flew all the way from California to be here, and I think I just came out there to do a exhibition performance or something like that
Mm.
because we missed the
Do a
division.
highlight.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Another
crazy.
big event that we wanted to talk about. So we talked about loop kicks a little already, but also the Red Bull kick it too. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Like I was really getting into everything when I started seeing videos of that. Like that really made me want to step up in the tricking side of things outside of like, just forms competition. Like seeing those videos was crazy. What were some like those events like?
Yeah, so one of the guys that created and ran it is Peter Yang, and he is next gen Ernie Ray's demo team member. And he's one of the first people that I ever saw do like combinations like with B twist and 540. First time that like early on.
He was the first guy to do a 720 twist, huh?
I possibly I'm actually not sure. Might have been Chris D.
One of
doing
those
that.
guys.
Maybe
Yeah.
one of the next gen guys did cheat 720 first, I believe. But yeah, he hit me up to talk about formats, and then we made all the rules for it because they really wanted the board breaking because Taekwondo board breaking, they had a whole separate division. So it was a little bit of time till we developed a rule set and brought out like some of the Americans coming out there. I think it was Donovan Sheehan and Andy Lee. Yeah, and we all went out to it was Kyle McLean, Rue, and me judging the first one. And it was super sick just to see the difference in styles because I used to go to Korea off and on to promote tricking for like the Kukiwon, like the headquarters, and do a whole bunch of demos and introduce them to tricking and the acrobatic ways of kicking in the 2000s. So it kind of evolved from that into them opening tricking gyms and all of that throughout that time. So it was really cool seeing the development of that to that event, you know.
Yeah, it's dope.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Very cool. Well, I have a question for Rudy specifically.
What's up?
In terms of commas. So at that time in the early 2000s, like tosses and releases were not as, I mean, some people did it, but not as much as nowadays, where like everyone does it in their forms.
Mhm.
Now, I find it interesting that like, because like some of your competitors, like Matt did a few tosses, Kalman did tosses, Ross, Levine, did body rolls. Now in the juniors, when you were a junior, I've seen Josh Corton do some stuff.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna start forgetting people, so I'm gonna stop naming off names. But
Yeah.
there wasn't as much competitors tossing their weapons, and you, I mean, were primarily known for your striking and your finger rolls. Now that's got to be something like I just wanted to pick at your brain, what's like, what's your mindset behind, you know,
I
just
think
doing
it was
finger
more about,
rolls?
yeah, I think it was more about being fascinated about that, and that's what created my style. But also that was my strength too. Of course I would like to toss it, but I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna toss it, I got to figure out how it's gonna be martial, you know, because I don't want it to look like I'm juggling out there, you know. Which is super impressive, and it takes a lot of focus and energy and things like that. But again, we're at a martial arts competition, you know. So
Right.
how I was brought up, it was about the martial arts. It was about how you strike, you know, and that's what projected the energy. That's what you know, my performance was fully based off of. So yeah, I think it was more about my interest more than anything.
Nice.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's
Very
very
cool. Very
They should
cool.
clip that. We should clip that and post it. We need
Yeah.
to keep sport karate martial. That's
Yeah.
there.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Very cool.
I
Very
love it.
cool.
And then I'm going to send one over to Steve as well. We talked about commas for Rudy, obviously. Was there ever any weapons that you enjoyed playing with or ever thought about competing with?
I think I've competed in commas maybe once, not even on NASCA.
What?
But I used to train under Arnold Chan right before like I started NASCA. So he taught me commas and strikes and everything. I just didn't you know, it's like I didn't develop forms for it. So I've played around with commas all the time. I've played around with Bo a little bit with Wayne, because when Wayne moved down here, I trained with him a lot and we'd train together. So it's pretty much whoever was around me that moved to LA. I would train with during that time, and we'd skill share. So
very cool.
Mostly those two.
Sweet. Cool.
Very cool.
I didn't know
All
that.
right, well,
Yeah. I had good friends. Champs.
Yes, so.
well, with Rudy, also like how kind of digging more deeper into the commas, you know,
Yeah, sure.
I think one thing I think we can all as martial artists appreciate, you know, about your commas, your skills is your striking. So kind of, if you don't mind, like explain like what's your intent behind striking, or if you want to, you can just give us a tutorial on how to do a 7-cut, or like like how what is it like that you think of, like how, talk through us and like how you learned from John Valera.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
I watched videos like crazy, so I was just obsessed about it, you know. So I watched a lot of Jimmy Pham, a lot of John Valera. Back in the day, we had VHS tapes, so I was watching Mike Chat's video, and you know, just picking up on different techniques. And what really held my foundation together was John Valera and the way he striked. And over time, I kind of adapted my rhythm to it, you know, and my philosophy. And my philosophy with weapons is honestly, it's an extension of you. You know, it's not something that you just hold. You know, it's a part of you. So when you believe that, it starts to become it, right? You start to see it, and that's kind of like the vibration I kind of push out when I'm performing. And when you see it in my hand, and I'm, you know, just casually, you know, twirling them, that's kind of like the root of it, you know. But also too, when I was young, I watched this like video of me when I was like 4 years old, and I have like this plastic golf thing, and I was twirling it, and I was like, what the heck? I've been twirling things for a long time. Yeah, so I mean, I was watching Ninja Turtles and stuff like that at a young age, so I'm, you know, was that kid, you know, that was fun for me. You know, just having things in my hands, acting like I'm doing martial arts and karate. So,
And
you
pen
know,
tricks, right?
and exactly,
That's
pen tricks, you know, that's low key the secret. Scratch everything that I just said right now. Just go watch pen tricks. And
like
that'll
manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
and that's the evolution.
Wow, that was perfect. That was a great answer. Yeah, may have to clip that one too. So yeah, that was a great answer.
We saw also like a clip you posted. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, just twirling commas, just boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
Speed, I mean, smooth. It's just, I feel like we need more of that in the sport today.
Oh yeah. Think about like, you know,
Sure.
like if you think about the basics of like twirling or just manipulation, you know, with weapons. We didn't have the finger rolls or anything like that. So you practiced how to grip the weapon, you know, and how to spin it. And when I was younger, I used to watch TV and just spin my comma all day. And I think John Valera told me to do that. And ever since that, I was just like, all right, anytime I'm watching Dragon Ball, I'm spinning it, you know?
One thing that always like I liked about your types of strikes too, it's like you have the texture of strikes. You know, you see like the relaxation into like the tightness into it, and that's what gave it that little whip too.
Right. Yeah,
into
for
it.
sure.
Probably because you were like practicing it so relaxed, where you can
absolutely.
like tense up when you need to.
Yeah,
You know?
you're a big philosopher on that too, because you know, watching you teach, you talk a lot about that, just like the in between and the ins and outs, you know, and you date it back, you know, Bruce Lee, he was talking about those things, you know, all the masters talk about that. It's not about muscling through, you know, it's energy, you know, that you're pushing out. So it's from, you know, the start of it, and like what happens in between it though, you know, those are the things you kind of have to think about. But again, it's like at the end of the day too, it's like you can't think about it. You know?
Yeah.
So, and that's where the flow happens, essentially.
For sure.
Cool. Sending it back over. Another thing for Steve is we were curious on like the creative process through building a form that or the approach you would take creating hand combos and things like that. So talk a little bit about kind of your approach to that mindset.
Well, I think for myself, I always gave myself like little challenges, like oh, I'm gonna make something out of this whack move that's like super not used anymore. It's like that's how I at least for like kick combinations when I did roll, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this really weird roll where I'm just gonna ball up and then come out of it like a pencil, right? It's like how can I use that into my form or into a format, or just try and flip the script. If I saw somebody do something, I would give myself a challenge to like make it different or format different. Like, oh, this tournament, I'm going to do my double pass instead of corner to corner, straight across, and then I'm going to do this short turn down to the corner, and still make it visual for the judges or even the audience too. Or I'm in the corner. I know that there's going to be people at the corner that are watching, and I'm going to do something just for them. And then it'll show that it's like maybe the judges won't even see it, but that person in the corner will get hype from that, and then the judge will see that interaction and go there. So just all these little things, giving myself challenges to think outside of the box, really developed my style into it. And for formats, it's like, I think a lot of times when, especially in traditional martial arts, where it has to be exactly picture perfect for everything, but then if you can follow like an ABC format, it's like, oh, he's about to end right here, and you just change one thing at the end, it'll be more interesting because it'll catch you off ground. It's like cheat 9 hook into a cart or something like that. It's like when people do see if they did cheat 9 hook and then fake cartwheel, switch direction, just even like saying that, you'll be like, you're visualizing it, and it gives you that time for people's mind to catch up and be like, oh, that's weird. And then you're onto this something else, and you pause, and then you let them go through that roller coaster of emotion and thought. Who was Emig was really good at doing that too, like faking out everybody, because he would show like his signature stuff, and then he would variate it into the next thing, and then have one release coming out. Yeah, so just that creative concept process I used a lot, and that's just developed, I think, also through like my peers as well, because every single tournament you don't want to do exactly the same thing, because you don't know if they're going to be leveling up for that next tournament, because we're all friends, but in that competitive vibe, we wanted to definitely one up and surprise them as well, and then give them that same type of reaction, like, ooh, coming out of it. Dang, he did that. And now I got to level up for that next division or the next tournament.
For sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Nice. I would love to get a little more. You kind of talked about it a little bit there, but the perspective, how much would you actually like really put thought into the crowd perspective versus the judges' perspective? Because obviously the judges are going to give you the score, but the crowd can influence the judges. So what's the balance there? I would love both of you guys' take on that as well.
I think in general, it's like your martial arts is always going to be there because you're going to drill it,
Yes, sir.
Regardless. So as long as you're clean with it, the judges will be based on that, basing like almost like an execution score off of that, because half the stuff they probably don't know all the small details with it, but they can recognize clean punches, clean kicks, and if you stumble, right? Then also, if you're doing high level difficulty things, the audience might not know what you're doing in general too, with like, oh, he did one extra variation, but it's very subtle. That's for like the enthusiasts, but the crowd might not appreciate it as much. So I thought about the crowd a lot more. I went through a phase of getting like fourths and everything, and I threw my hardest stuff one year, and then the next year I kept it a little bit more simple, and then I tried to package it in kind of the same concepts of, okay, I'm gonna change up the pacing, and then do different concepts to evoke like more of a feeling instead of trying to just spam the hardest stuff, because it kind of detracts from how difficult it is. If you like just think about your form like a roller coaster and like how much tension, it's like, oh, I'm going up, it's getting up there. Doesn't really matter what hand combination you're doing or anything like that. If you go like boom, 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 look, or it's like all the same thing in like the cool fight scenes or anything, or even music tension. It's like you have to have that in your form, and your martial arts will always shine through that.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about like, I'm going to be faster, because everyone can eventually be faster, just slightly, right? You can be sharper, whatever, and that just comes with the drilling. So that'll be there. It's more about like taking them on a ride and taking them through the emotion of your form or your intent. which is a big thing that Rue and I always talk about. It's like the intent. It's like if I'm going to punch here and like boom, you know, you have to visualize that in your head as well.
100%.
Yeah, because you got to think of it as it's a performance, you know, but at the same time too, within that performance, how are you going to approach it? And you just never know. The judges, you know, that's what really determines, you know, the night. Because back in the day too, you're just like, well, shoot, there you got the arbitrator too, right there, and you're just, well, like, this guy doesn't like commas, you know, or this guy doesn't like bow. So, and you kind of already know that, so you kind of have to, like, either your coach or whatever, you know, comes in and talks about that, and you got it again. It's part of the sport too, you know. So knowing that, you kind of just have to, because back in the day, it was really about the martial arts. And, you know, when I'm checking out the competition now, I'm just like, man, I think you guys should train a little bit harder before you step on the floor, you know. And yeah, it's a black belt and up sport, you know, and some of the guys are just kind of kicking like, oh, they just started the couple weeks ago, you know, and that's just me kind of just saying the truth, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, it evolves with time, and there's always growth. So that's the happy medium right there. But NASCA, you know, is a top or association, you know. That's why we wouldn't do the other ones, you know. And honestly, NASCA was the only ones that we really gravitated towards, because the level, the sport level, you know. And honestly, that's what I appreciated about it, you know, being in that time frame and competing and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm super thankful for those moments, because it did bring us into the industry, you know, and performing on a different level of, like, thought, you know, and intent. Still taking what we learned in the sport and competition and things like that, because you kind of have to put that out, you know, in auditions, and things like that. So again, it's like you brought that mindset there, you know, in the industry and quote unquote real world, with your sport karate. So yeah, I think it really relied on your karate, you know, and that's what the judges will base it off of. And of course, you know, they may or may not know the difficulty, but what they know is the energy, you know. And I can see it from afar, you know. I can see if, like, oh, he's compensating and yelling too much. Like, I could see that, you know what I mean? You don't need to do that, you know. You can't fake the funk. At the end of the day, it has to come. You have to come correct. If you're not coming correct, it's like, I already know what you're on. You know what I mean? So,
watch a John Blair form and see how much he's screaming like crazy.
He barely screams.
It is like a different. It was like he already knew. It was like confidence thing with him too. It's like he knew he was like the sharpest one, so he just let it ride on that. Which is crazy. Or, you know, it's like everyone had different flavors in that way. People scream more like that, but it shouldn't. For me personally, when I'm watching, it's like it shouldn't be your main thing is to do the yelling because it's in there. You know, it's like almost like acting. It's like you have to like be and not push,
right?
Like make that your pushing thing. You know,
absolutely.
Like yeah, just for performance, because you can yeah, it's like faking the funk. You're just you can tell, you know.
Sure,
because you just can.
Yeah, I was gonna say any advice you guys want to share at the end, but I think that hits. That was great. Yeah, that's awesome
For sure.
Would there be anything else you would want to leave like this generation with for now? Obviously, you guys are still active and getting more active, doing a seminar coming up. So, but for tonight, at least, anything else you want to leave to the people?
Oof. I think, yeah, and just play more, play. Play, give yourself challenges to experiment a little bit more. And then, you guys everyone always drills, so drill those concepts. And then sometimes some of my best ideas were happy accidents. It's like, okay, I'm gonna try this concept and drill. And then sometimes I mess up, and then I made up a new variation off of things. And I think just through that, then you own that for yourself, and then let that just shine through in your performances. Just beat.
Yeah, with mixing with that, the play is so important. And then also take care of the root of it, which is your basics. And because if you can't play unless you have good basics, so I would say also too, if you're training for a tournament, stay away from your phone. I would stay away from the phone, and I would only probably check my phone intentionally for the weekend, just so that way I'm clear on my potential, because I do that for music and things like that, or just creative things and such. Because if I'm overloading my brain with all this like data, it's hard to focus up, so that's kind of like my advice at the end of the day, really. Yeah, but ultimately just have fun. It's all fun, fun and games. So
for sure. Well, that's awesome, man.
Great advice.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys taking some time with us tonight. A lot of good nuggets of wisdom sprinkled out throughout the episode. So appreciate you guys. That's been awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Send it out.
Yeah, and come to the the seminar and workshop.
Yes, sir. March 29th.
29th.
Shoot, we're
Where's
doing
that? That's in California, right?
It's in California.
Yes. Santa Ana.
Yes, sir.
If you need more information, you can email ckdojo.chris@gmail.com. Chris will give you info, and
Sure.
I believe till the 23rd through the 29th it's $200, but until I think we have another week, and it's $180, and that's 4 sessions, so not too bad.
No,
Yes,
not at
sir.
all.
And we're doing giveaways as well.
Sweet.
We're giving away 10th degree commas, 1 division at Elite Summer Showdown, and Iceman shirt or gloves, depending on how he feels. And then also 1 division at Orange Coast Junior Nationals. And then we recently talked to Mr. Alvin Brown, and he's the promoter for his new San Diego tournament on May 3rd. And he will sponsor 1 division and add a tournament shirt as well. So we got some goodies, man. We got some things for y'all. So, come through. It's if you're coming from like the other side of the world, you're welcome to slide, so it's not just for Californians. A lot of people are asking, oh, this is just for no, dude, you can come through it, this is for everybody. But I will say come through to work. It's gonna be pretty extensive, but at the same time fun, and it's gonna be some good stuff for sure.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if you're in the area, you can't miss that. And even if you're not in the area, get to the area, because you can't miss that, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's a big deal. Very cool. Well, once again, appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. If you were leaving comments throughout the night, we appreciate that. We'll go back in and look at some of those. Once again, big thank you to Steve and Rudy for taking the time tonight, just chatting with us for the last hour. We really appreciate you guys. So as always, we thank Century Martial Arts and Sport Karate Zone for hosting us. This has been another amazing episode of The Clean Truth, and we'll catch you guys later. Have a good night.
Yeah.